In this lecture, we'll take a look at a few special purpose languages. Although each of the procedural languages we've talked about so far has its own strong points, all of them are more or less general purpose languages. So what we're going to do here is we're going to discuss three languages that were each designed for one specialized task. Specifically, we're going to look at SQL, we're going to look at HTML, and we're going to look at JavaScript. Now, I should mention that these three are merely representative. I mean, there are many different types of specialized languages out there. The first specialized language we'll take a look at is SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language. Now, SQL was designed to be used with databases. So you might be wondering, okay, what exactly is a database? We're not going to spend a whole lot of time in this course with databases, but it's basically allows us to store data. It allows the user of the database to add new data or even retrieve data that's already stored. Now, if that's all a database can do, it really isn't much to it. It would just be like an electronic filing cabinet. So databases can also be queried. Or in other words, we can ask questions in order to get specific information from the database. So it can tell us exactly what information the user wants, and we're not so worried about how to find the information. We use SQL as a way of telling us exactly what information we want from the database and not so much on how to retrieve the information. Let me give you a simple query example just to kind of show you how we would ask for specific information. Let's say we want to find all the names of vendors of whom we do more than $40,000 worth of business. So maybe we have this table of a list of vendors, and from that table we can tell like what kind of transaction, what kind of business we do with those vendors, and we want to find out which of those do we do more than $40,000 worth of business. So here would be some actual SQL code. So we would say select name from vendor where purchase is greater than 40,000. So what we're saying here is we're assuming that inside this vendor table we would have a field that's called name. Think of a field as kind of like a column header. So we have a column of names. So we're going to select the names from this table that's called vendor, and there may be another column called purchase where the value is greater than 40,000. So that's all we're doing here. So we're just selecting the records in this table where purchase is greater than 40,000. The second language we're going to take a look at is called HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's used to create HTML documents, where when we view them with a web browser, they become web pages. So an HTML document consists of the text to be displayed on the web page. And we put this together with special characters that are called tags that will achieve several features, such as the formatting of text. They'll handle special effects and even references or links to other HTML documents. Now I want to be very careful because we say HTML programming, but that's not entirely correct, because the program is just giving the web browser instructions on how to display the text. There isn't really any computation or any processing that's going on here compared to other programming languages. This is just more of instructions on how to display a particular page on a web browser. HTML tags are enclosed in angle brackets, so the less than and the greater than symbols, and they often come in pairs. The end tag, which is the second tag in the pair, looks just like the begin tag. So we have a begin tag and we have an end tag. And the end tag looks like the begin tag, except that we have an additional / in front of the tag. So just to give you an example of these HTML tags, we may have something like title, where we have the less than or greater than symbol around it. So that's the begin tag. And then we have the end tag, which just has a / in front of the word title. Here's an example of the format for an HTML web page. So we see that the whole site is enclosed in HTML tags. So this lets us know where the HTML page begins and ends. So we have our HTML begin tag here, and then we have our end tag all the way down here. So think of this as just basically the beginning and end of the HTML page. We also have head tags, or sometimes we also just call this the header. So this contains the header of the site. So this will give us information like the title. So that's done in this area right here. So this will include like the title tag. So it would display the title that you would see on the web page. And then we have the body tags, which is this section right here. And this would handle what actually appears on the page itself. So paragraphs, pictures, links, and so forth. Let's take a look at an actual example of an HTML web page. So maybe we'll have something like this. So we have the HTML tag, so we know where we begin and end. So let's take a look at the head part of it first, the header. So this section right here. So we'll see that the title of this is going to be called first page. And then the rest of this is the entire body of the website. So we see in this section right here that we're going to get something that says this is an H1 heading. So the H1 is a header tag. The P tags mean that we have a paragraph. So we're going to see some stuff that paragraph that says this text is bold. The B tags mean that we're bolding those texts. The I tags means we're italicizing it. This section right here will take care of unordered lists. That's what the UL part is. And the LIs are the items in the unordered list. And then we have down right here a link to a web page. So the ahref link gives us a link. In this case, it's going to be the WVU text site, but this is going to be our HTML page. So now let's take a look at how this actually appear on a web browser. So we would our title, it's a little cut off in the picture, but you can kind of see it right here where it's going to say first page. So we see the H1 heading. You see that this text is bold and this text is italic. So we see the bold and italic tags. We see the bulleted list. And then we also see the, here's the link to the web page. So we get this link right here. And if we were to click on that, it would actually take us to the WVU Tech website. Now, in our last example, we saw several different types of HTML tags, not just HTML body and head and title. So I just want to mention a couple of those tags in more detail and just show you how those work. So the H1 tags create what's called an H1 heading. There are different types of headings that we can include in our pages. So this would be bolded text with the largest possible font size among all the headings. The P tags would be the paragraph tag that I mentioned. So in order to create different paragraphs and distinguish from one paragraph to another, we can use the P tags. The B tags would allow us to bold our text, and the I tags would allow us to italicize the text. The UL tags take care of creating an unordered list, or this would basically be a bulleted list. The LI tags would be used inside the unordered list, and we would have a pair for every single item that would be in the list. And then finally, the A tag, which stands for anchor, would provide the hyperlink address. So the beginning tag would have A and then href equals, and then in quotes, we would have the link that we want to go to, the URL. And then between the tags, we would put whatever text we want that could actually be clickable on the web page, and then we would just end it with the /A. The last language we're going to talk about is JavaScript. Now, a scripting language is a lightweight language that is interpreted. So it's translated and then executed statement by statement. So these scripted language code fragments can actually be embedded in web pages. And this would make those pages active rather than just static. So like with normal HTML web pages, we can display text and lists and links, and we can even do pictures. I didn't even mention that we can do pictures. But there isn't really any interaction that goes on within those pages. So we can use a scripting language to take care of that for us. And JavaScript is one such language. Now I want to make something very clear. The name of this language is JavaScript, but it's not the same as the full-blown Java programming language that we've already talked about. We'll discuss an example of JavaScript just to kind of show you what we can do here. So let's say we have an image on a web page and we want to change the image of a web page. Normally we can't do this, but we can do it with JavaScript. So the idea is we're going to take our mouse, and whenever we have our mouse hover over the image, we're going to change it to something else. Now the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a function that's called image switch. And this is going to use what we call an event handler. And an event handler just simply responds to a particular event, such as mouse movements or button clicks and so forth. Now to make this work, we're also going to need to use the script tags. And this is added in our header. So along with our title, we would also include the script tags in our header. So this would define the image switch function. here is our HTML JavaScript code. So notice that we have these script tags here, and then it goes all the way down to here. I had to use 2 columns just so we can get the whole thing on here. But we have script language equals JavaScript. And so inside these tags would be the JavaScript code. So inside here, we actually have 2 different functions. We have a start value function, which is right here, which would give us an initial picture, which we have this variable called nextPic, and we set to image2.jpg. And then below it, we have another function, which is called ImageSwitch. So this function will actually take care of how we would actually change the image whenever we hover the mouse over it. So we would get the element by ID, so this document.get element by ID would be the image, and then .src, which is our source, that would be set to the next pick value. So then we can check to see if the next pick is image 2, we would change it to image 1. Otherwise, we would leave it. Otherwise, if it's image 1, we would set it to image 2. And then inside the body, we still need to have some code to actually invoke or call the functions inside the JavaScript language. So notice that we have our tag for imaging. So img, which is shown here, and then the end tag is here, would take care of displaying the image. So the src is the source of that image. So that's image1.jpg, and we gave an ID of it, main image. That way we can use that in our JavaScript. And the main things I want you to take a look at is this section right here. The on mouse out and on mouse hover. So on mouse out means that whenever our mouse leaves the image, then we're going to call image switch. And then also when we have the on mouse over, which means when we put our mouse over the image, we're also going to call image switch. So we put the mouse over it, and it's going to call image switch, which will change the image from image 1 to image 2. And then when the mouse leaves the image, when it's no longer over the image, we'll call image switch again, which will change it from image 2 to image 1. So here we have our HTML JavaScript code over here, and we have the resulting web page over here. So let me explain what the code is doing again, just to show you here, then we'll demonstrate the JavaScript that's being done over here on the right side. So we have our body right down here, and the main thing here is we have onload start value. So if we take a look at our script tag up here, we have the function for start value, and we see that nextPic is set to image2.jpg. So initially our image is image 1, so it's going to be this apple that we have right here. And so we have on mouse out and on mouse hover, so those will call the image switch function, which is defined in our script tags right here. So here image switch is saying, well, get the image from that's considered nextPic. If it's image 2, we'll make it image 1. Otherwise, we'll make it image 2. So this is basically the code that allows us to say, if I put my mouse over the image, it will change. Now, in this case, image 2 is an orange for this example, and image 1 is an apple. So if I put my mouse over the image, we see that it does turn into an orange. This is image 2. And then when I take my mouse off, so that the on mouse over, or mouse out, I should say, calls image switch, and we have the apple. So this is just an example of some Java code that allows us to change images when we move the mouse over the image or not. So the whole point here is just to show you that we can do some more stuff with our HTML code.